Welcome to the Champagne Rugby Podcast, coming to you from the Export Beer Garden studio. Cheers to MAXRaft, your number one choice in insulated foundations. And James McOnie joins me, Tony Lyall, in today's episode. And James, we've got to start. It's the biggest news in New Zealand rugby at the moment. I would say it's almost the biggest news in New Zealand sports media at the moment. And that, of course, is that on Saturday night you did stand-up comedy in spirit of the game, and you absolutely smashed it. Well done, mate. It was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tony Lyall. It was it started off very well, but I did say to Adam before that, our producer Adam, I did tell a joke near the end that probably got the toes curling a bit, but hey, you've got to push the boat out sometimes, you know, and I don't mind a few gasps as long as, you know, there's not too many people going, ooh.
Yeah, it was. I will say this. It was definitely, I was kind of thinking, you know, he's the guy from Crowd Goes Wild. He's very family friendly. And then it came in with some quite acerbic lines in there. You know, some really, you were pushing the line for a little bit there. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think the part of it is, I guess when you're at home writing jokes, you sort of go, yeah, that's good, and you'll test it on yourself, and you go, what do you think, James? James, yeah, that's great, James. And so then off you go downtown, and it's like, hey, James, not that one. But having said that, I think I had a lot of other jokes that were a lot safer and I knew would have worked, but weren't on topic. So I believe I was the only person who stayed vaguely on topic.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, the idea was a sports-related stand-up comedy show. Most people sort of started off in the vague area of sports and quickly went away to anything else that took their fancy, which, to be honest, I didn't mind. It was kind of a hilarious twist to the show, but you did very well. You managed to stay in the lane of sports almost exclusively with some we won't get into it to spoil your routine, but some very great observations about the Māori All Blacks.
Yeah, that's the one gag that I think started well and finished poorly was that one. So in not necessarily in my defence, but just in this past sort of week, I was just thinking about stuff and about why don't the Māori All Blacks play the Pākehā All Blacks, you know, with the Māori All Blacks going, hey, Pacifica players, we've got no beef with you. You guys are fine. Off to the side. Let's go Pākehā. Let's bring it on. And so I don't think I even said that. That was part of the gag as well. Because you know how you forget parts of the gag.
Oh, of course.
And but the thing about it is right now in New Zealand, there is a bit of tension.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of tension. Just it's racial tension. It's political tension.
It is.
And if you decide to go through that minefield, you better make sure you got your sweeper with you, your metal detector, because there's a lot of things that you can step on.
I think a Pākehā All Blacks, I know it is slightly controversial and it's hard to raise. Like if it had been something that had been around for 50 years, it would probably be totally acceptable. But, you know, if you were to put your hand up and say, hey, I'm going to assemble a team of just Pākehā All Blacks, you'd actually might have an argument to say, hey, you know what, they're the minority here. They're going to have a weaker team. But I think that there is some great players out there at the moment who'd make that team. I think it'd be strong. Yeah,
and the other thing I was going to say is how great is it that, because I thought you were going to, we were going to talk about sport afterwards. And in the end, it was good though, because you made me prep. I was thinking about, who is my GOAT? We didn't get to that question.
I wrote about 10 questions for every single person who was on. We had 5 comedians on, and I had a bunch of questions, all personalised for them and their background that I'd spent time researching. And then basically, we started 20 minutes late and we were under the pump due to the show before us finishing late. We were under the pump completely time-wise. Yeah. And we just had no time to really ask anyone a question apart from what their greatest sporting achievement was. And that was about it. Yeah,
it was. And even with me, I didn't get to that part because I had a slideshow to go through like some sort of punishing sales exec. But anyway, it got me thinking when you were talking about the GOAT. And I thought one of the cool things about New Zealand sport is at least we don't have that the racism, that American sport. It's very hard to say, well, Babe Ruth is the GOAT. It's like, well, you didn't let African-American players play, so black players weren't even allowed to participate in their top leagues until the late 1940s, after the war. I think they basically sent them to the war and went, oh, maybe we should let them play sports for us as well, since or whatever the reason was. I
imagine they excelled in the war. A lot of the white Americans watching going, hey, these fellas are really killing it, quite literally here. They're by far and away the most athletic in the army. They're really tearing it to pieces. Imagine if we scaled this back and instead of using them as killing machines, we use them
chuck a helmet on them. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. So they in the late 1940s. So I was kind of going along the track of like, hey, yes, Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali, in my opinion, Pele's my GOAT, the soccer player.
Oh, right. Pele. Nice.
Pele. Yeah. Goal a game, 3 World Cups, biggest sport in the world, dominant. Massive horn dog as well, which I really wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I'm a real Serena Williams guy because I guess I'm more progressive than you, but carry on.
Yeah, exactly. Serena up there as well. In fact, there's another American female athlete called Babe Didrikson Zaharias who won Olympic medals in track and field, played golf, baseball, and basketball at the highest level. And at golf, she's almost the GOAT at golf as well.
That's a great, cross-code sporting ability. And is her name Babe, her first name?
Babe, she would have had another name, but
Or was she just a looker? That's a sign of the times as well, that there was like a very competent female sportsman, and the men saw her and were like, yeah, all right, Babe.
Well, do you know what? I think the interesting thing about Babe is that she wasn't a looker, and that quite often cost her whatever you want to, fame or sponsorship or blah, blah, blah. It's very shallow in America. And so Babe, she caned it in the javelin, hurdles, in the Olympics. And then all of a sudden she's winning, I think, 12 majors in golf.
Incredible.
She was fucking amazing, but died young, I think from cancer at 45. But she was big around in the 1930s, possibly, and then golf into the 40s and 50s. So that's the other GOAT.
Yeah.
But then I guess what I'm saying is, to come circle jerk back, is there's so many, we'll never know, like, for example, if there was a great black American footballer from the 1920s, because they weren't allowed to play in the NFL or the big leagues or whatever it was, the top league at the time. Same with baseball, same with basketball. Whereas at least in New Zealand, we do know that George Napier was arguably our greatest fullback until Christian Cullen came along. And I do love that about New Zealand sport. When you go into the history, at least there's not that shitty segregation.
Yeah, not a big asterisk.
Yeah, it's not a big asterisk. Exactly.
Asterisk?
Asterisk, it's supposed to be, yes.
Yeah, it's a tough word to say on the fly.
Not easy.
Yeah,
your GOAT?
Oh, it's I always
You've
think
gone
about
Serena.
it. I have gone Serena. I don't mind. I also Michael Phelps for me is just, he's absolutely just a freak show. He's one of those guys whose body is perfectly designed for the sport that he chose to play. Like, he has something like his wingspan is like a full almost half meter longer than his body is tall. As like hands go down, and he's nearly 2 meters tall. His hands nearly go down to his knees. Like, he's just a freak, which makes him the perfect specimen for gliding through the water. And he's won more gold medals probably than the entirety of the New Zealand Olympic team over the history of the Olympics. He's just a bit of a freak show, and he might have been juiced up to his gills. Who knows?
Exactly, could have been, but they did say, was it double jointed? He had a bit of double jointing. There was
some sort of freak show shit going on that made him just perfectly suited for swimming, and that's it. Like, if he had just worked at a car wash, I mean, sure, he would have been able to get dirt from the top of the van when it was parked, but there's not many other sort of applications for that skill. But I think it's hard to. I love a bit of swimming. I like those sports where it's just it's you almost nude, competing against someone else, and you've got to get from here to there the fastest. There's not all these other bits going on. Like team sport as well, it relies on the team you're in so much, unless you're just full of individual flair. But just that swimming, one person against each other, just go for it. Maybe Phelps it is. I
was just thinking, imagine if I ended up on American TV talking about their GOATs and just saying, well, you've got the big asterisk there, haven't you? You didn't pick black players or athletes all through the first half of the century, and watching them sort of go, oh shit, we don't talk about that though.
Yeah, we try to keep that pretty low key.
Yeah, we don't really. We just go about Shoeless Joe, Field of Dreams. It's cool. Babe Ruth, the Babe. What a great player he was.
What's the name? I'm thinking of the first African-American baseball player who came in.
Jackie Robinson.
Jackie Robinson is what I was thinking of, yes.
So, look, there's not just that as well. It's just the whole thing of, Americans, if you see their lists, it's very American-centric. You could do anything. You could play that frickin' house down in a number of sports, and when they have their... Because they think they're doing the world.
Yeah,
they really do. They really do think they're doing the world. And it's like, and that's where Pele actually at least gets a little bit of a mention sometimes. Yeah. Just a side story about Pele. This is a rugby podcast, by the way, if you're tuning in, Champagne Rugby Podcast in the Export Beer Garden Studios.
We'll get to it. We'll
get to it. He was such a horn dog that when he went to play for the New York Cosmos in the 1970s, all the away teams, when he was on the road, knew that he loved the ladies. So they'd send a limo to pick him up, champagne, ladies, and then take him off to a nightclub for a big night out, knowing that he'd be a bit worse for wear the next day for the game.
Just the night before the game.
The night before the game, they'd say,
Incredible.
Pele, you're our guest, you're the greatest, you're the GOAT, come with us. And of course, they're just trying to get him basically smashed and, you know, in his horn dog ways. But then when I met Pele, got to meet him.
Great drop.
He was a born-again Christian by then, and his wife was very Christian, and he was all like, no, my life has changed and blah, 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 which is very convenient.
It's exactly what I was thinking. A bit frustrating, really,
yeah.
when someone does more dirty things than most people would do in their entire life,
Yeah.
in 10 lifetimes. Drugs, women, the entire works, and then they go, oh, no, actually, you know what, it's not for me, I'm still better than you. You're actually living a bad life by going out and having 3 beers on a Sunday afternoon.
So you've got the lads, the bros telling stories about Pele being such a horn dog and bloody lady slayer or whatever, and then you've got the Christians going, but Pele came to us. So you're really sitting on a massive fence there.
Yeah, well,
with a big pick it up your jacksie.
America's got their lady slayers as well, of course, OJ.
Massive lady slayer.
Massive lady slayer.
And a male slayer as well.
Oh, allegedly.
Yeah, exactly. Which he
I think the statute of limitations has passed on that one.
He's dead. We're okay.
Yeah, I think we're good to go. We can. I'm looking around at the producer. Yeah,
Is OJ dead?
We can send this out. You're hearing this. I'm certain you're hearing it. Hey, well, I was going to say a perfect time to transition to
Sam
someone
Cane.
who isn't dead, but someone who is leaving. Sam Cane at the end of this year, which does seem like weird timing, but he's decided to pack it in and not quit rugby entirely, but end his international career.
Yeah, and look, I think he's getting to that age. He said himself, he's 32, and to keep going till he's 36 for the next World Cup or whatever he would have been, 35. He was kind of doing the math in one of his quotes, and I was going, yeah, this isn't the cleanest. We can't use that one on Crowd Goes Wild. He's going, yes, I would be. When's the next World Cup? 2027. Anyway, I think it makes sense to me. He's probably had a chat with Razor. Razor said, yeah, I mean, definitely this year it's all on. You can compete with them, but we've got some guys coming through. And I think Razor in the back of his mind knows that he probably wants to transition into a Peter Larkai or a Dalton Papali'i or whoever it is, just as the next generation. But for me, Sam Cane was bloody outstanding at certain facets of the game that he never got enough credit for, and that is defence. It is half of the game, and he was the best at it, and probably better than Richie McCaw. People would hate me for saying it, but I mean, McCaw, obviously the GOAT of turnovers, but I'm talking about tackling and hitting people with your shoulders.
He was smashing blokes constantly. I think the thing that, and again, this is almost a little asterisk, is that he did seem to go through little periods of injury, which would take him a while to recover from, and then he'd come back with an absolute hiss and a roar and smash some CUNTs, to paraphrase it. Was it a Warriors wrist tape at some stage?
Yeah, that's right.
But his tackling was devastating. He had such a good ability to read where the play was going and then destroy a guy. But I sort of did the maths as well, and I looked that he would have been about the same age that Richie McCaw was in the 2015 Rugby World Cup.
Nice.
As an open side flanker as Sam Cane. So I did wonder if maybe there had been a bit of a inside word of maybe Richie, we're going to keep this open for you. It's all yours to take, and maybe that option wasn't there for Sam. Yeah,
it's a different. I guess the body's been through different trauma. He broke his neck, Sam Cane, in South Africa, and I think it's taken a bigger toll. And also the style of game that he plays. I mean, there's no doubt that Richie McCaw is the GOAT. There's a fucking GOAT outside, and it's Richie McCaw.
It really is the GOAT.
He is. And so I've got no qualms about saying that and everything he brought to the game. One other thing that I think Sam brought as well, if you think about harmony in the force, is as a captain, and this is where Eye Sockets Reed was so amazing, just bringing the team together and being more united. I know from hearing stories that Richie McCaw's captaincy, there were always these weird divisions, and maybe it was just a sign of the times and different personalities. But under Sam Cane, all I hear is it was pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
yeah, they struggled and lost a few games, and Fozzie was his head on the chopping block, but it was a pretty happy camp, and I think Sam Cane had a lot to do with that. Quite a progressive bloke who knew how to deal with different personalities and people from different ethnicities, walks of life and stuff like that, and he got it, he got it.
And it's just such an incredible shame for him that, one more point, 2 more points, and he would have a World Cup as under his captaincy to his name, and what a legacy to leave. But I feel like, again, maybe a little asterisk that he'll be looking back and thinking, that would have been nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, would
have been nice.
It's a massive shitter. And we need to interview at some point on this podcast, because we are quite hard-hitting, a bit like Sam Cane. We need to interview, is it Jesse Creel, the guy who he tackled for the red card in that World Cup final? Did he deliberately change direction 90 degrees to go straight into Sam Cane and just go, this is how I'm going to do it? I can see you coming in a bit high. If I step this way, my head's going to hit your shoulder, or vice versa, and you're gone. But anyway, that was a shitter, massive shitter. I don't blame him. That red card to me was borderline. Massively borderline. And so that's fine. One other thing I just wanted to say about open side flankers is when you're a young kid and you go to the rugby and your dad takes you to the game, straight away you're drawn to the open side flanker. You are. They are muscular, they're quick, they're always on the ball. They pretty much represent what you think is the ideal man. You sort of know that they're the sort of guy who will do well in the bar afterwards. They represent sexual prowess. Mm-hmm. They represent someone who could stand at the end of the bar, not move for the night, but still pull, still score. And so an open side flanker is just one of those guys. You, as a kid, you bond with them a bit like, in Avatar when they hop on those flying lizard dragons. Oh, yes. And they bond immediately.
Oh, the hair loop, yeah.
Yeah. And you, like for me, it was Dwayne Monkley, and probably for you, it was Josh Cromfeld. When you see that open side flanker, it does something to you as a fan. And I feel like actually also that commentators, when they say, that open side flanker, he's been on the ball all day, it's like you're just describing his job. It's like saying, look at that halfback, he's clearing from every ruck, and he's even putting the ball on the scrum. Yeah. Amazing. But having said that, it does something to you as a fan watching a really good open side flanker go about their business. Yeah, it does. It's the glamour position of the forwards. You've obviously got, and I guess it's the divide in rugby fans. You've got, your backs with your hair gel and your eyeshadow, and, they're the fancy glory boys. And if you're drawn towards that style of play, then you're looking at the first 5 and you're thinking, he's got this team on a string. But if you are more inclined for a bit of up the guts, rough and tumble, and you're drawn to the forwards, it is that number 7 that you do look for instantly and be like, he's in there, he's doing all the rough and tough, but they can be a bit flashy, they're getting penalties, they're over the ball and they stand up and they look around, and everyone slaps them on the back. They get the most credit probably in terms of the forwards. They're always getting pumped up. They are, and they've kind of got that body where you just go, that's a bloody athletic body right there. And I mean, you can't help because you're chasing that ball all day. Yeah. And there is something you do think, is it big dick energy, or is it just you feel like they'd go quite well in the bedroom? I think they certainly would go well in the bedroom. I mean, David Pocock, I'm sure he posed a cock very well, but I think of a physique. He was just guns and pecs. It was like a full triangle. Josh Cromfeld was the same. Well, and actually, he used to be my coach down at university, Colts Blues, I think we were called, back in 2006 or something. And he has the Phelps thing where his arms are too long for his body. Yeah. They're down to his knees. He looks like a gorilla in real life, and that makes him the perfect proponent of tackling a man, getting your arms in the ball, because you have these giant, long monkey arms. Well, I feel like not only Josh as well would go well in the bedroom, but also Michael Hooper. He'd be like a jackrabbit, even Jack Hammer, if you will. And he'd be flicking his hair out of his face the whole time. And he's got those eyes close together, so it'd just be, it's a piercing kind of like... it would be. Yeah, gay, just looking down on you. I think there was other... I've obviously mentioned Dwayne Monkley, Michael Jones. Bonded with Michael Jones big time. Oh, he's the nicest man I've ever met in real life. And there was a flanker for Waikato called Stephen Burkhart. I mean, this is a deep, deep cut. But anyway, he was super athletic and an Adonis. And he had a twin brother who played club rugby for Parongia down by the mountain there. Oh, yes. And so I could see his DNA just wandering around in a small town rugby game anyway. So isn't that cool that you could watch the the hero that I watch at Rugby Park where there's 20,000 people couldn't get near him, but there's his twin brother, and that's what the perfect specimen looks like.
I always feel for the brother of players.
Yeah.
It must be tough to be, you're the second thing anyone ever asks about. I mean, the obvious go-to is the fourth Barrett brother, who I think just plays for Coastal down in Taranaki.
Blake.
And I'm sure he's a great guy. I think he is maybe 100-game veteran down there. But, he's not an All Black or a Hurricane or a Crusader. It must be tough where everyone is like, oh, your brothers are doing well. It must be the first thing everyone says to him for his whole life. Firstly, can't believe he still plays rugby. I feel like you could go one or two ways. You just go, I'm not a rugby guy. I'm going to go do something else. I can't be dealing with it.
Be Elon Musk.
You'd have to do something, but I guess maybe he just loves to get on a few export ultras after the game, and I guess that could be a nice way. But it must be tough to be constantly talked to about how good your brothers are at the sport you also play.
Yeah,
it's
tough.
I feel for him.
Have you got a brother?
I've got an older brother. He's a lawyer. It's the classic lawyer-comedian combo.
Oh, my goodness. So, yeah, you feel that, don't you, every Christmas where they're going, oh, tell us some stories about, the legal business. And he's got a few war stories, and it says cut and thrust and, lots of high-stakes things. And they go, so, Tony, tell us about your stand-up.
Well, it's talking about my dick on stage for 20 minutes, so that's pretty good. No, I always think it's quite that we do almost the same thing, but just for different outcomes. He's trying to settle a land deal for a local iwi, doing some constitutional law somewhere, and I'm trying to make 45 people laugh at the the merchant of Matamata. So we have similar paths in a weird way.
Yeah,
use a similar area of your brain, but he's a finely tuned specimen. He really
great
is.
plug for the merchant of Matamata. Take me down there for gig number 2. I'll come with you.
Oh well, we can jack that up. Great gig down in Matamata. Actually,
Okay.
we'll do the leg work behind that. And one before we leave this topic of open side flankers. You do mention Peter Larkai, you mentioned Dalton Papali'i. Is this the future? I mean, we've got to the end of the year, and I imagine they'll give Sam Cane a nice big sort of glory stroke. What's the word I'm looking for?
He'll get a glory stroke.
He'll get a glory stroke, sort of one last chance to come everywhere. But who will be coming after him? Who will be coming in behind? Peter Larkai's been lighting the house on fire, sort of like a young arsonist, I think. He's been playing exceptionally well. Dalton Papali'i would be the heir apparent. But I know
Billy Harmon was going great guns. Sorry.
I'm leave the floor open to you.
The interesting thing for me is, I thought before the season started, I thought Duplessis Kirifi was looking so good in the preseason. Always thought Peter Larkai was going to be an All Black. He looks like he's going to be an All Black. He's just that good. But I thought Duplessis Kirifi, there's something about he's looking super fit. The thighs that he likes to show off. He pulls the shorts up.
He likes to show it off.
And but now it looks like it's Larkai. And also thought Anton Segner would be the first German All Black. But he's sort of since moved back into the ranks. And even I think Adrian Choate, the Chode, comes off the bench now. So it's Dalton and Peter Larkai for me at the moment. And look, you can't actually choose too many open sides now because you're probably going to get Artie back to cover.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Hoskins is going to force his way in.
Yeah.
And then at blindside, you've got this sort of shootout between Summer Penny Finau and Ethan Blackadder if he gets back and is fit, because Razor will pick Ethan Blackadder if he's available.
Luke Jacobson, where does he fit in?
Luke will play as a utility covering all of those. So again, that's why I feel like with Larkai and Dalton, you'd take them as your main open sides, your specialists, and then Luke can cover all 3 positions.
Yeah.
And then Artie, I guess, will, if he's looking, and he has been looking good, I guess, in the Japanese footage, he'll come back and play number 8.
Yeah, I think Artie Xavier as well. And it's tough for a guy like Duplessis Kirifi, where Artie Xavier is also kind of the short man who can kind of play everywhere as well and is so exceptional. So to have another short fella at 7, you almost couldn't have Artie at 8 and Duplessis at 7 because they're just too short.
Yeah.
You got to have a beanpole for number 6, but you've only really got. I mean, you can throw it to Artie in the line out, but
no, you're right. You actually are right.
Not a hell of a lot of times. You need a taller option, which
Summer Penny and Ethan, I think, have got to be in the equation. Yeah, I don't think you can go small with a blindside now. I mean, you look at Peter Steph Dutoy. Absolutely owned us in that World Cup final. If you're playing in a big game, you've got to have some big units out there to compete.
Must be tough for him, old Deep Blue Sea, because he's so great. And just thinking, if I was just a little bit taller, I could have been a baller. It's tough.
If you had a girl, you would call her?
Yeah, something like that. I was trying to think of the next line, but it's...
If I had a rabbit and a hat.
Oh, there we go.
I don't know. Anyway, let's take a break.
Let's take a break. We'll be back in 1 more minute. And we're back. It's the Champagne Rugby Podcast. I almost got the name wrong of the own podcast.
Rugby.
And hello, weekend of rugby union. I was enthused. I was embiggened. I was emboldened. We had it all.
Well, let's go straight to your team.
Let's go straight to my team. I'm wearing the jersey now, the throwback jersey. It was throwback jerseys all round, 7 o'clock on Saturday night. The Highlanders beat the Crusaders, and I genuinely thought it was a pretty exciting game, a great game to watch. It looked good because they were wearing the old jerseys. There's something, it's more than just a marketing stunt. Like when you see it, it throws you back to the good old days of seeing Josh Kronfeld, of seeing Andrew Murdens, of seeing your childhood heroes out there. And I can't believe Adidas didn't do it earlier. Classic come in first season and go, yeah, let's do the obvious thing that everyone wants. Put them in these jerseys. But what a game. The Highlanders beating the Crusaders, proving two things, I think. That the Highlanders can string some good rugby together when they want to, and that the Crusaders this season are shit.
I thought the Crusaders played quite well in that game, and the Highlanders were really, really good. So I reckon, I think it's quite tough, isn't it? Because you can tell it's the biggest game of the year, Highlanders versus Crusaders.
Yeah.
And watching Cam Miller at the end of the game going, I grew up in Southland, this is a dream to beat the Crusaders. It's a dream. And I thought, good on you, Cam. That's exactly what you should say.
100%.
You shouldn't be saying the Crusaders are a bit shit this year. But I mean, you know what I mean? In his mind, he's like, I don't give a shit. I just beat the Crusaders and I kicked some goals. And I had Ben from accounts on the sideline jumping up and down like a freaking giddy schoolboy going, hee, and he was loving it.
Is there a more Highlander player than Cam Miller, by the way? Just a absolute salt of the earth, Matthew Cooper, Jimmy Cowan, love child looking Southlander.
He must be related to Cowan.
It's crazy, the similarity, the same hair. But the more, we were talking about it on the commentary, the more you look at him, the more he looks like Matthew Cooper. He was like it was like a magic eye.
I know, but I'm just thinking more geographically, he's got to be related to Cowan.
Yeah, I mean, whereabouts in Southland is he from? Is he from Matoda? Is that where Jimmy Cowan, whakapapa?
Maybe. Was he Gore? I don't know, but anyway.
Has to be.
He played really well at first five, and the good thing is that when people talk about a player, there's this kid coming through, and they often say that in Super Rugby, and then you never get to see them. Like, as a Chiefs fan, I was waiting for Tian Falcon to play. It's like, okay, yeah, cool. I remember his dad as a flanker, blah, blah, blah. Never barely even got one single game. He's gone to Japan.
Yeah.
Whereas Cam Miller, it's like, wait for it, you guys. He's going to be good. He's going to be good. And that was a game where he just went, yeah, I'm happy at this level. Scored a try, kicked some goals, ran the cutter.
He did run the cutter, and I was just couldn't stop thinking about it, of how important goal kicking is. He nailed a whole bunch of kicks, and in the end, we only won by 4 points. I know there was a pretty soft try in the last play of the game, which did bring it right back up, but it probably should have been a 10-point victory. But just consistently taking penalties, I feel like all teams seem to be very keen to kick for the corners at all stages, where only 4 or 5 years ago, you'd take the penalties as a complete must. And the Highlanders did that, took so many penalties, and it just blew out the score, good old-fashioned scoreboard pressure, to throw a cliche at you. And the Crusaders tried to mount many attacks to come back. They looked pretty good, but they just were almost a little bit short of ideas. I'm not sure if the David Havili experiment at 10 would be what caused it, or what it was, but they just seemed to lack a little bit of shape, and they were unable to get within QE at the end. Yeah,
I was intrigued by the battle of the halfbacks, Noah Hotham versus Folau Fakatava. They both played so bloody well.
They did. Hotham is unreal. Fakatava, probably his best game.
Yeah, exactly. They just sort of... and that's the thing. I feel like halfbacks, even though the focus always seems to go on first five, I feel like halfback is just as important.
Yeah.
You just need the person who's going to give you that space, give you that room to operate, make every correct decision, because invariably when the ball goes out to the back line, you're not actually passing it to your first five. You're passing it to a pot of forwards who'll decide whether they crash it up or they give it again to the back line out the back. It's like it's two passes before you reach the first five. So that halfback first five combo isn't really a thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's just that you need them both to operate perfectly. And I take your point that Havili is having teething problems. I actually, one thing I noticed is Sam Gilbert was on the bench for the Landers.
Yeah.
And he was probably your best player last year, along with Billy, right? And so it's a bit sad for Sam, but he's kind of been eclipsed because they've gone, we want these more, I guess direct sort of blockbusting midfielders. And so I think Jake Tahiwi looked good.
He did. He is
looked
looking
really
great.
good.
Yeah.
And then obviously Tony Lyall looks good. And then Sam had the opportunity, I reckon, last year, if he'd forced the issue, to say, I'm a 10, just put me at 10. I always thought he should have done it.
Yeah.
And now this bloody kid from Southland's come through, and he looks the goods.
He really does. And, I mean, I don't mind having Sam come on as a reserve, as shoring up the midfield or shoring up wherever he needs to be.
Yeah.
I mean, he can play basically everywhere.
Fullback as well.
So
eh?
I think he's a really good option on the bench. And, I mean, big Jimbo Slice, Timothy Tavatavanawai, the leading turnover player he has the most turnovers in all of Super Rugby Pacific. It is outrageous. I mean, he has the physique of a 7. He's built like an absolute brick shit house.
He's a tank, isn't he?
He's a tank. He's a freak. He's so good on attack. Pick and goes up the wazoo. So many turnovers. He's the talismanic figure that all good Highlanders teams have always had to have.
I mean, I remember, I know that you always downplay your 2015 team, but that's the greatest backline in Super Rugby I've ever seen, which was Aaron Smith.
They never believed James
Sopawanga, Fekitoa was in there, sometimes Buckman. But you also had another 12 around that time. But you had Waisaki Naholo, probably the best winger the best sustained peak as a winger in Super Rugby, I'd say.
That year specifically was exceptional.
And Patrick Osborne, who's just a beast. Like, if you look at him, you go, oh, you play number 8. No, I'm just hanging out there on the wing, just running people down. And then the GOAT at the back, Ben Smith. I love that back line.
It's an incredible back line, but I feel like you have to take my point that it's a back line of offcuts. It's a back line of other teams didn't want them, and we put them together, and it was the Highlanders that made that particular group of men great. No one else wanted. So many of those players were turned down from other teams. Apart from Ben Smith, I think almost all of them. I mean, Richard Buckman might be the other, but Lima got turned down from the Canes. Aaron Smith, the same. He was booted out of there. Fekitoa. He was sent down from the Blues. I think Naholo was also kicked out of there. There's just a team full of people going, we don't want you, we don't need you, and then get them together. And it's something
where did Waisaki? Because he was from Wanganui, so I mean something really bad happened there, because that would, to me, would be an obvious one. Like the others, it's always a bit tricky because I think Aaron Smith, he was at the Blues for a little while, so they messed up there. But the Hurricanes must have been. I mean, I guess they ended up with TJ at the same time, so they ended up with their own GOAT. Or, I mean, Pity and TJ probably vying for that spot in their franchise. No, it was good. Look, the thing about it is, if you look, the Highlanders getting those wins in a row means they're kind of serious again. But this weekend they have to play the Blues, and this is where you find out. You will find out, Tony Lyall.
Yeah, it's tough.
What they're made of.
It's tough because we can transition seamlessly to that game now.
We can mention it. Yeah,
it was the 4 o'clock kickoff, 4:30 kickoff, afternoon footy, Eden Park, big numbers and 27,000 odd people strolling into Eden Park for the top of the table thriller. And my one major complaint, I think it was perfect fixture. The timing was great, 4:30 kickoff, beautiful, get the families in. The Hurricanes, what are you doing? Wearing a black jersey. We've got the Blues wearing their retro jersey. The Highlanders, the Crusaders wearing their retro jersey. The Blues like, why don't we just wear this shitty black one? It was a perfect chance to go for their old school one as well and make it a big afternoon of everyone wearing their old nice jerseys. We don't need this black jersey.
Oh, the Canes wearing that. It was also, I mean, it wasn't that much of a clash, but it just, like, I thought, you got to turn up in your yellow and just make your fans just feel that vibe, right?
Why are they persisting with this black jersey as well? They played last week against a team who was in a basically dark blue jersey, and they were in black. I mean, I think it was over one of the Australian games, maybe the Brumbies versus the Tars, and they both had white jerseys on, but one was dark blue. Who are these people?
We're getting lost in jersey weeds here.
We are.
The one thing about that,
just wear yellow.
I know, wear the yellow. The afternoon kickoff, there's something beautiful about it. I went along to the game, and you see the smile, the joy on the faces. It was just, a really good feeling, the camaraderie between fans, heaps of Hurricanes fans. You felt like it was not quite a home game, but it was getting close to 50-50. The Blues hung on for dear life.
Yeah.
I feel like there's been a lot of games that have been decided by referees' calls, and I feel, not that it was a bad call or anything, but I think, the ref could have probably, if things had gone a little bit differently, he might have actually called another penalty or another sort of decision that would have got the Hurricanes closer. But the difference is that they went for the tap, and okay, fine, go for the tap. I'm actually okay with that. But then there was a big play that came in off of Tongafasi, and then Sam Knock ripped the ball away.
Yeah.
In the wash-up, though, the one thing that stood out for me was Harry Plummer running down Ruben Love.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to be the All Blacks fullback, you got to get away from Plum Dog.
You've got to get away from Plum Dog.
And I think
he's a big rig, by the way, Plum Dog. You kind of think, it's first five, and you see him in IRL, and you're like, look at this absolute barrel of a man. He's a large specimen.
So that was awesome. Probably the best dog, best game the Plum Dog's ever played for.
I think it was the best dog that Plum Dog's played.
He was the best dog in show.
Yeah.
And best game he's played for the Blues.
Easily.
I actually thought there was, if I was brutally honest, I reckon the Blues type five had a monster game, and Hoskins just keeps playing really well.
Yeah.
But Dalton Papali'i looked really good. So this is where I guess those All Blacks who have had long seasons before, around this time of the season, you really need them to show some form.
Yeah.
Because, it's been all about Lakai. It's been all about even Billy Harmon and other sevens. Even Kalen Boshier looking good at 7.
Yeah.
But then I thought Dalton was great. And, props to the props.
Props to the props. It was just quite a show as well. And I feel like there was a real buzz about Super Rugby over the weekend as well. I mean, maybe just because I was in Auckland and commentating a game directly after the Blues game, but it felt like the thing that people were talking about, which as a rugby union enthusiast, it really brings me a lot of joy to think this is the game. And even I know I'm banging on about these jerseys and stuff, but it's little things like that make the game be talked about. Having the game at 4:30, we want it to be the conversation people are having. Oh, did you go to the Blues? Hurricanes won, where there's been a lot of time where it has been a bit stagnant, a bit stale, so it hasn't been that topic of conversation. So I think the more that they can do to keep building on this sort of popularity and people talking about it, the better. Release all sorts of crazy shit. Let's make a 2:00 game, or I don't know, try some Sunday games. We need to just mix it up.
I agree with you. I think there's the magic of the afternoon game was there for all to see. It's tough because of the ratings. They say, you want those games to be in prime time because it helps pay the wages of the players. But the one thing I think really worked was having, obviously the weather played its part. It was nice weather, but having that 4:30 game means you could get everything out of the way. It's not clashing with club because you could technically play your club games, just maybe move them forward by 15 minutes, which isn't much, or even half an hour,
and
watch them in the club. Exactly. This is what I'm saying, Tony, sorry. You can move them forward, you finish your game, you've got the game on in the club. It just becomes this nice kind of feast of rugby, and having 2 games back to back means that you've got the beautiful afternoon game that, hey, you might just catch the second half because you're out, chasing kids around or whatever. And then when you're back at
chasing
home,
your kids around.
Chasing your kids around, Tony.
Not other kids.
And then, you don't want to be pesting on kids around the place in the neighbourhood. But when you get back home and you've got another game of rugby as well, it's quite nice, I think it's good marketing for the game. That's what the NRL gives you, is like, okay, I missed the Sharks v Roosters, but I'm here for frickin' Titans Panthers. Oh, I'll give that a go. And that's what rugby had on that day.
I wish they'd just get us in there. We could give them these ideas, tell them ditch these rounds with only 4 games. We need it to be able to sit down and watch a couple of games in a row to really sink our teeth into the games and enjoy them and enjoy ourselves.
One last thing before I go off to the Blues is we've talked about the 2 derbies, but the Chiefs playing Moana Pacifica. It was a post-apocalyptic scene at Go Hard Stadium.
It was crazy awful.
So I couldn't see what happened. Apparently there was some issue with the ticketing, but hey, it still was depressing. And so if that's what's going to happen, then maybe you just say, like, the Friday night game has to be a blockbuster because that was terrible. Just seeing it was like COVID was back.
Were they saying there was a ticketing issue? That seems like a lie I'd tell if my show didn't sell out. I'd say, oh yeah, no, the tickets didn't go on sale till a week before. It just looked like no one cares and no one wants to go to the game. It was crazy. It looked like it was, again, it looked like COVID. And then, again, getting absolutely spanked to within an inch of your life doesn't help at all. It was a brutal game.
The other thing is that Josh Jacob played very well at first five. First fives are going quite well at the moment. And so we also discovered he looks exactly like the Count from Sesame Street. Oh, yeah. And there was a big day for Josh to be christened the Count.
Oh, great.
And, I'm sure he'll love it.
1, 2,
5 beautiful points. And so, we did that all night, probably annoyed people. And
I'd say the complaints would have rolled through.
we get our fair share on 3236. But there were a couple of other nice moments as well. Attending Nanai Saturo. But Simon Parker, the man who nobody remembers, nondescript, exactly. I should remember. Simon Parker, the blindside flanker for the Chiefs. Remember him?
Only because you've talked about him being unmemorable before.
Yeah.
Ironically, that's why I remember him.
He's got a nondescript name. Nobody cares sometimes, but he actually is. He had a great game, and good on you, Simon Parker.
Yeah.
I care. We care.
We care. And the other, we're not going to go into this. I was going to mention it. 48-10, the force over the Fijian Drua, which broke my damn heart. I thought maybe they would get it together, to be honest. But
it was a bit sucky.
Yeah, it was a bit sucky. So big old weekend of games in the Highlanders for me. I'm very juiced up about that.
I'm going to let you choose the TAB good punt because last week I had success with the right wing multi that came through, $800. Thank you very much. G-Lane is normally our master punter. I will actually say this. Adam's nodding his head. Yes, G-Lane almost gets. He's got a bloody good strike rate.
Yeah.
But I said, let's go right wings. And we went with Pubes Fabling. We went with Severed Peace. Even though he played on the left, we thought he was going to be named on the right. Mark Talaire and Tim Ryan, the junkyard dog, the new star from Queensland.
Yeah.
All came in. 800. You're welcome. It's
lovely stuff.
As for my own personal gambling, not so good.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, I'll try to conjure that up and we'll come back with that TAB Game Day Good Punt in just a moment. Welcome back to the Champagne Rugby Podcast, now brought to you by MAXRaft, fitting insulated concrete slabs nationwide. The first step to a warm, comfortable, healthy home. And MAXRaft's insulated concrete slabs are warming homes around New Zealand, and now they want to give you, yes you, the chance to head to your team's next home game. Just text HEAT and your super team to 3236 to be in to win a double pass to your team's next home match. Do it. Text HEAT to 3236. And it is time for our TAB Game Day Good Punt. We've got that $100 bonus bet to put on, and we're going to do a little try-scoring double up again for this week. We're thinking maybe we'll go for the Hurricanes and the Chiefs, focus on those two games, and a forward and a back from each team. So Braden Yossi for the Hurricanes and TJ Petinata. You know, TJ just loves that try-scoring record. He's got white line fever. He loves to dot down there. So those two players. And then for the Chiefs, Tini Nane Saturo out at 15 to score, and Wallace Atiti off the back, the big number 8, the big man. So if those four players score, I don't even know what the odds are, but they'll be through the bloody roof, and I'll say we'll be absolutely drinking some champagne, supping deep into our heads, and you can sup deep as well by heading to the TAB website, tab.co.nz, or download the TAB app to check out all the rugby union promos and the boosted odds market, and a huge weekend this weekend as well. The big one for me, that is the Highlanders playing the Blues on Saturday night at Eden Park, an absolute belter that is going to be. The Crusaders Brumbies, that's the old showdown happening before that. It's in Australia, but the timing is before that. And then again on Friday night, the Canes, Moana Pacifica, and the Rebels play the Chiefs. So the big one for Kiwi fans are the Blues versus the Highlanders. So we'll let you know how that goes next week. Tune into the Champagne Rugby Podcast. We'll be back. And remember to go to comedyfestival.co.nz and snap up at one of those beautiful tickets to Lower the Tone, my comedy festival show, which is on next week as well. So a big week indeed. We'll see you then. Thanks for listening, you beautiful bastards.